What's up, Scyushi Squad? We are back in this more Trove, and today we're going to be talking about the new event, which is going to be the Cowasaurs and Dinoboys. Basically, cowboys versus dinosaurs. I don't know why they didn't just call it that, because it would have been a little bit more catchy, but I guess because technically speaking, both sides have dinosaurs. It's a very, very cursed event. I kind of like it, though. Later in the video, I'll show you guys as much of the items that I've been able to obtain from the event, but granted, I still have not been able to get every item. There is a way to end up making some of the items out of the event tradable, which is pretty cool, but generally speaking, it's such a tedious endeavor that the items are still considerably overpriced, at least on the PC market. But either way, the way that this quest line works is actually kind of interesting, because you're going to notice that there is this split down the middle right here, because as far as I know, you can actually tackle one side or the other's quest line in either order. So I just kind of ended up going into the hub and talking to Dinosley, because that was the first quest line that I had, which is these guys right over here, versus you can end up talking to the sheriff over here and starting his quest line as well. But that said, we're going to end up going in the order that I ended up doing it, which was just going into the jungle, but keeping in mind that you can do either or at any point in time. I'm pretty sure anyways. But anyways, speak to Dinosley. So it's going to end up being this guy right here, which looks awfully familiar. Makes me wonder why my Dragon Kigurumi costume never got into the game, but hey, whatever. Okay, cool. So his quest line, you know, you just talk with him, you end up getting a Dinoboy token. And yes, there is separate tokens for both the jungle side and the desert side, which we'll talk about momentarily. And then they want you to use the Dinoboy crafting table. So that's going to end up being this little workbench here with the little booties on top of it. You do that, just interacting with it will get you another token. And then they want you to craft the banner of the Cowboy Conquest. So this is going to end up being the banner. It's got decent stats if you don't already have a better one, but is not required for this event in any way, shape, or form, which is kind of cool. And you can see the resource cost is considerably cheap. So they want you to craft one of those. You'll get another dino coin. And then defeat enemies of the desert frontier. So you quite literally are just going to go into the desert frontier. And you're just going to end up fighting normal enemies in here, you know, going through dungeons and stuff. You gotta defeat 75 enemies, so it can end up being quite tedious. But every single one of these enemies, all normal enemies, they're all going to end up counting towards that total counter. So once you end up completing that, killing 75 enemies, you get another dino token. And then right after that, it wants you to defeat dungeons in the desert frontier. So you gotta complete 25 dungeons. Pretty brutal. One thing to keep in mind, if you don't know, is that a 3-star dungeon, technically a dungeon in Trove, is completing the dungeon objective. And so by going to a 3-star dungeon, there's actually 3 different objectives that you can end up completing. So that'll end up helping towards the total counter. But anyways, once you complete 25 dungeons, you get another dino coin. And then place Cowboy Conquest posters. So in order to do this, I gotta hop back into the hub just to show you guys really quickly. You're gonna end up going back to the crafting table, and essentially there's going to end up being this poster item right here. Where's the stupid, there we go. So there's going to end up being this. Don't worry if you end up crafting an overabundance. Frankly speaking, you probably are going to have to, just to end up completing this quest line. Just because otherwise you're going to end up being in trouble. But essentially there's going to end up being these stumps that don't have a poster on them. Let me see if I can find you guys one. So actually, here's one that somebody tagged, and it seemed like it, I don't know what's going on. Where are all these baby spiders, and why is this thing gigantic? Did it end up generating with a boss like ability? Because technically their code is that of enemies, so it would make sense that it could end up doing that. But anyways, let me see if I can find a legit one. They're kind of difficult sometimes. There's one right there. Actually, we got super lucky. So you're gonna see one of these without a poster on it, and then all you're going to do, somewhere in my inventory, you end up using the poster on the ground, and then it's going to end up putting the poster on it. You gotta do that to 3 of these bad boys. Keep in mind that it is very finicky, and if you end up missing for whatever reason, your poster is just going to delete itself. So that's why you go for the extra ones. You'll get a dino token out of that. Then they want you to complete Dinoboy dailies. So once again, we're going to be hopping into the hub area. And essentially, there's going to end up being 3 quest NPCs right by Dinosley, which is going to end up being this guy right here, this guy right here, and this guy right here. And each of their different quests are going to end up being defeating dungeons in desert, enemies in desert, and putting posters in desert. So that's going to end up being the dailies. They are going to actually give you a different token, which we'll talk about momentarily. But you complete all 3 of their dailies, and then you get a Dinoboy Effigy, which is going to end up being the very important item for this event. But before we end up moving on to Sheriff's Lee, let's talk about that right over here at the Dino Workbench. So these are going to end up being the Dino Effigies. So these are the tokens that you get for completing dungeons. All right, so when you're defeating dungeons and opening the chest inside dungeons in the Desert Frontier, you'll end up getting some of these coins, and you can end up getting more out of 3-star dungeons. However, the event itself was actually giving us these tokens, which these are also tied to the dailies. So these are kind of the premium token. And for whatever god-awful reason, you have to complete 2 sets of dailies within these guys in order to craft even one of these things. However, the cool thing is, as I'll show you guys the effigy a little bit later in the video, that these essentially are going to end up being the same as style savers. So they're going to only unlock items you don't already have from the event. So at the very least, you're not reliant on RNG, which is nice. But let's move on to the next portion of the quest line, which is speak to Sheriff's Lee. So that's going to end up being this guy. A quick reminder, you could have started this guy's quest line first if you wanted to, but I'm just going to go in the order that I ended up doing. So you just speak with him, and then you get a Cowasaur token. So let's just call it a cowboy token, which again is different than the Dino token. They're 2 different currencies. Then they want you to use the Cowboy Workbench, which is going to be this little cute thing right here. Petition to get this as a crafting table in the game because I want it. So you just interact with it, you get a cowboy token, and then they want you to craft a banner, which is going to end up being this right here, similar to the other side, you know, the Dinoboy. Actually, I just wanted to double check. So this is the magic damage one, and then this is actually the physical damage one. So they do actually have different stats, which is interesting, but they both end up having all the other stats be basically the same. Anyways, craft the banner, and then you end up gaining our cowboy token, and then it wants you to defeat enemies of the Jurassic Jungle. Ooh, but just before we hop into there, I'm gonna mention that you're gonna want to try and craft some of these dino posters just so that you have them, right? You know, that's going to end up being something a little bit later in the quest line, but it's good to end up having them so you don't gotta come back to the hub. So as you're in the Jurassic Jungle, it wants you to defeat 75 enemies, which is defeating the enemies, and even the, I don't know, the dungeons are kind of random, but generally speaking, it's going to go very, very quickly just because the amount of 3-star dungeons that you can end up finding in the Jurassic and the amount of enemies that you'll end up fighting, although I seem to be getting very, very unlucky. But anyways, you defeat 75 of those bad boys, you'll get an cowboy token, and then it wants you to defeat 25 dungeons in the Jurassic. So that'll end up being, you know, either the swampland or over there you can see with the canopy tree over top. It can end up being, it's very random whether you'll get it done really quickly or not, but you'll end up completing 25 dungeons and you get a cowboy token. And then it wants you to place the dominance posters, which is going to end up being the ones here in the Jurassic. So similar to the desert, you're looking for these bad boys out in the world map, and then you're going to throw your token down. You're going to throw your token down, and it's just going to delete every single one of the tokens. Okay. Point is, you got to end up placing down 3 different posters on those bad boys, and then you'll get another cowboy token. And then it wants you to complete the dinosaur or cowboy dailies, which they're, again, similar to the desert side. There is going to end up being 3 different NPCs you can interact with over here, which is going to be, these are some of my favorite NPCs in the game. Like, look at this guy. He looks cursed and beautiful. This guy's just a cool robot that I want as a dino costume. And then this is a freaking crab dinosaur, like, for crying out loud. Their quest lines are going to be pretty much the exact same as the desert guys, but just the opposite. So these ones will want you to defeat enemies in Jurassic, defeat dungeons in Jurassic, and place posters down in Jurassic. That's going to end up being all of the dailies that you can end up getting from these guys. By completing this portion of the event, however, you'll get a Cowasaur Effigy, which Again, we ended up kind of just covering those, but we'll cover them again very briefly because now that's basically it as far as the event is concerned. I can show you some of the prizes and stuff like that that you can get out of this. But essentially, you are going to have to craft these posters every day, not really much else. And then similarly to the desert side, so the Cowasaur token is going to end up being a token you get from opening dungeon chests in the Jurassic biome. 3-star dungeons can give you a couple extra tokens, which is nice. However, the event itself was actually giving us these Cowasaur tokens, including the daily quest will give us these as well. So every 2 days worth of quest lines, you'll be able to craft one of these things. Now, that might seem bad, but as I mentioned previously, the cool thing is that these effigies are going to give you items that you don't have. So no matter what, you are putting the progress in to get all of the items out of the event. Now, the cool thing is that I've actually got a couple of these saved up, just only a few of them. The cool thing is that at any point you can end up grinding past the event. Like once you have all of the items for yourself, you can actually loot collect these for a box that essentially is going to end up having any of the event items completely at random as a tradable variant, which is pretty cool. Some people are taking advantage of the fact that they, nobody has the tradable versions of these right now, so they're considerably overpriced. But you can end up, as it says right here, you can end up containing crafting materials as well, so be careful with that. But it'll sometimes contain various tradable versions of collectibles unlocked through the event. Now, keeping in mind that this effigy, whether you end up consuming it or loot collecting it for the chest, is different from this effigy. But anyways, let's see what happens when we end up using some of these. So I'll use one of the... I already have all of the items from the Cowasaur. Really? I must have got super lucky. What about the Dinoboy ones? Okay, so this ended up giving me the Orange Bandit, which is an ally. And we already got everything. Oh my god. Okay, so I was able to do the entire event basically just in... I did the event, and then I did my dailies today, the following day, and I was able to get everything. Okay, then maybe these items aren't going to end up being as expensive as I thought. Well, I guess it is still RNG whether or not you get lucky enough to get these items out of these chests, but... Oh. Interesting. Both of them... Oh, okay, both of the effigies actually just turn into a box that can drop either item. So that's fair. And it does have a karma bar as well. Are you serious? That's interesting. And it's got Bound Brilliance. Bruh, you guys want to you want to grind this event, dude? I'm telling you, Bound Brilliance is one of the resources that you are going to struggle with when it comes to end game and leveling up your gems and gem augmentation and stuff. So get out of your way and go and get that stuff, man. That is absolutely crazy. So let me hop over to the pirate captain here so I can show you some of these items that you end up getting out of the event. I love them. These are some of my favorite event items. Like, sincerely, they are great. So there's going to end up being this hat style and then this ally, which we're showing off right here. So he's, his stats aren't that great, but sometimes spawns a dino kick bot when you deal damage, which is beautiful. And then you get this helmet, which is absolutely cursed. I love it. I seriously do. I really like this ally. He just looks so stupid. I want this giant thing as my ally, not a smaller variant, frankly speaking, but it still is adorable. And then there's going to end up being the mount. This is, I think this is from the cowboy side rather than the jungle side, but I'm not 100% sure on that. But either way, it's going to end up being this gun style, which, I mean, if this was an actual functioning weapon for the gunslinger, I think that would actually be really, really cool. But as a mount, I don't know if it works for me, man. I mean, somebody might be like, oh my god, that is absolutely epic. It's got the details to it. I'm not saying it's a bad mount per se. I just never understood the whole flying gun thing ever since Daughter of the Moon had her weapon that you can end up flying on, right? So anyways, then there's going to end up being this horse boy cowboy head, which is also very cursed. Kind of reminds me of BoJack Horseman. He's very, very weird and kind of angry, but okay, cool. Then there's also going to end up being this other hat style, which I like this one. It is just so derpy and stupid. Just look at him. Look at his eyes, his deadpan eyes. Get out of the way, you stupid idiot. There's also going to see, you see how I'm skipping over these recipes? So these are quite literally going to be recipes that you can craft and then place down in your cornerstone and club world and stuff. It's just going to end up being the same posters that you're throwing during the event. Now, this is my favorite hat style because big neck. I mean, look at this thing. It's got the derpy eyes, and he also has a gigantic neck. It makes me want to use one of those potions that makes your head big, but I don't have one right now. Then there's going to end up being this mount, which is also going to end up being a flying mount. I think this is the one from the Jurassic. Kind of makes sense because, you know, it's a dinosaur. Look at this thing. It's beautiful. I like it. It's kind of stupid, but again, I do appreciate the details that we got. And he just looks really cute. I don't know. Oddly enough, it reminds me of the Mario movie, the live action one, not the new one coming out. One of my favorite movies of all time, by the way. And I don't know, it's like a flying Yoshi or something weird. But anyways, then there's also going to end up being the new ally that we just got, which has the following stats and sometimes spawns a Dinoboy Rex when you deal damage. Okay, cool. This guy is a little small. He's very, very cute. Very, very cute. But he is very, very small. Let's see what happens when he dances. Oh, he shakes what his mama gave him. Okay, cool. And then, yeah, that's basically going to end up doing it for the event guide video, guys. Now, another thing I gotta mention just before we end up closing today's video is the live stream of me doing the event. I'll probably have that come out tomorrow, just because I don't know. I feel like I don't want to swamp you guys with too many live streams over the past couple days, so I'll probably have that stream come out tomorrow so you guys can check that out. YouTube members on the channel can end up seeing it early, as always. And then in a couple days, so not tomorrow but the next day, I'll end up doing the pack review of the Deserted Dinosaur pack, which is the new pack that has been added into the game. I've seen a sneak peek of some of these items. I know that they're actually really, really cool. In particular, it's got a fantastic gunslinger costume, but again, we'll kind of wait to check that out together. Either way, I appreciate you guys coming out, and I hope you had fun. Smash like, sub for more, buy the merch you want, support the channel, and have a wonderful day, everybody.